Good afternoon, everyone. So nice to see you all here. I mean, you're probably a bit surprised to see me because it's not usually myself that introduces these webinars. It's usually the lovely Helen. So I'm actually deputising for her today. And we are in for a very inspirational afternoon. I'm sitting here feeling very I'm not worthy, I've got to tell you, because we're going to have the lovely Bridget Hamlet who's going to be talking about the things that she does in her library. And then after that, we will be hearing from Paul about a little bit of a talk about Overdrive. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to you, Bridget, and I'm very much looking forward to listening to you.
Thanks, Bev. Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. I can see some friendly faces. That's always nice to see. So I'm Bridget Hamlet, and you can see I'm here in my library, which looks absolutely enormous from this angle. I promise in real life it doesn't look actually this big, but I am very fortunate. So you can see I've got a beautiful environment to promote reading in. And today I'm going to invite you to think like a bookseller is really what I'm kind of themed this after, is getting you to think about your library more like your own bookshop. And so contemplate it as if you are the owner of this space and really taking ownership of the space, but also thinking in terms of your stock selection, your customer services, and your marketing and events, just like a bookseller would think about it. So in that way, automatically professionalizing what you're doing and really having a plan and a strategy. That's my plan. So we'll start with the stock, because when I did start in this library back in 2018, that's the first thing I did. I started with the stock, and I had to find in my drawer, because I saved some of the things. The first thing you do is edit. So you got to get rid of the old stuff. So if this is your bookshop, it's got to be bang up to date. It's got to be beautiful, and it's got to have the best books, because that's what people want. And, you are representing books and reading for pleasure and things that are exciting, that have to compete with YouTube and TikTok and phones and everything else that they want to be doing. So if you've got old tatty stock, or if you've got stuff that's just not very appealing, it just brings down your whole collection. And if you've got like one lovely book hidden amongst a bunch of other ones, it just doesn't look like a great bookshop, does it? So I just want to point out a couple of gems that I found, because that's always fun for us librarians to find. So this lovely hairstyling book was one that I found in 2018 on the shelves in here. So that had to go. I found classic Pluto as a Planet. Again, we're looking for misinformation and things like that. So that one obviously had to go as well. And then there's some misinformation in some older books that, can be really quite damaging and quite seriously in need of getting rid of. And so this one, I am American or whatever, so I gravitated towards this. I thought, wow, this was published the year of my birth. I won't tell you how old I am, but you can guess how old this might be. Okay. And so in this book, there is a lot of really, really questionable, to put it mildly, language used about the United States of America and the different populations within it and stuff. So this really, really had to go. So the importance of editing is there, but the hardest ones to get rid of, again, when you're thinking bookshop, so you might have got rid of those real obvious ones. But then you have these books that you just love. I love John Mayhew, love Monster Odyssey, love this book, but it's just gone really a bit tatty around the edges. And you have to start questioning, like, well, do I have a better copy of this? Can I get a better copy? Is it actually going out? So the last time, this hadn't been going out for a few years. And so it's when that happens, that's when we need to sort of be getting rid of these books, even though we love them. And then hardest of all to get rid of for your bookshop, because you have a limited amount of space, a limited shelf space. The ones you love, they're still up to date, they're beautiful, they're still in really pristine condition, but you've got loads of copies because maybe it was part of a book challenge, not enough copies to do anything else with, like an intervention group or anything, and you just really want to hold on to it, but actually it's not going out. So it's almost like clearing out your wardrobe in some ways. So these are like those lovely things that you just keep but never actually get used. And the importance of that is to make room for new. So it's trying to make sure that your stock looks beautiful, is all up to date, and is really welcoming and inviting. And I am very much a fan of, it's better to have fewer really, really good things than lots and lots of stuff, but some of it's not that great. It just makes your library look better if you've got lots of really good stuff, and then you've got more space to display things out as well. So sorting out your stock is step number one. The other aspect of sorting out your stock, besides editing and making it look great in your library, is where do you go to get new books? And I don't want to teach my granny to suck eggs here. I'm sure a lot of you already know about like library book suppliers, but when I was working as an advisory librarian going around the city, we did have a lot of new library staff, and I'm sure there's a lot of people signed up who are new to libraries, and they just don't know where to go to get books. So I just wanted to point out as well, thinking about definitely using, if you've got a local schools library service, the SLA has a link on their website to schools library services to signpost you there. So getting advice from them and getting books from them is my top tip to loaning books out, especially until you get to know your collection and get to know your readership and things like that. So that's a really good value for money and value for time, because that time side of it is so important with getting books, because you can get a bunch of books from Scholastic or from Half Price Books or even from Amazon, but are you getting the right ones? Are they going to go out? You have to process all of them, so you've got to jacket them, date slip them, put barcodes in them, spine label them. All of that takes time, and if you're on your own in a really busy library and your library, is constantly busy, when are you going to actually do that? So to compromise against that time, sometimes it's definitely worth either borrowing from an SLS or using a library supplier. So like Peacher's Books or Brown's Books for Students, because they will do all of that processing for you. So for paying a little bit extra, you get it jacketed, spine labeled, barcoded, and date slipped. That means when you get that book in your library, you just have to upload it to your system and it's shelf ready. And that's really, really important, that time saving and getting those books out straight away. So I think in terms of stock, those would be really my top tips for that. Getting lists from useful people. So like, I've got it even here. Lucas Maxwell, previous winner, I think he's got a webinar coming up as well. He's just published this year the 300 great books I put from Mr. Maxwell. So he's put this on his Twitter account. So I had to get that printed straight away. So looking at lists from other people is really, really useful. And again, your SLS will have recommendations. The SLA has recommendations. UKLA, they've just announced their long list of books. So knowing where to go for books. And the SLA, I've got this here too, of my little tray of goodies. I've always used the school librarian in terms of looking at the reviews and looking at ideas for the different books to get. So I would go through and like highlight the ones, and like if I should be getting like 3 copies of something, make note in those types of magazines. So that's, in terms of stock, there's lots and lots of help out there for getting the right stock and getting your best value. And I do want to mention as well, once upon a time, going to the likes of Amazon, they had really, really good discounts and things like that. And I could see the temptation if you've got a very limited budget. But more and more, when I start shopping around, and I will do a comparison, especially if I'm buying lots of books or many copies of one book, I'll check Amazon prices, and they're not any better than a lot of those library suppliers that I go to. So, it's definitely worth looking around at the likes of Peters and Brown's Books for Students and Askew's and Holt's, just to see if they can compete. If the bottom line is the only line that you're able to look at, just bear that in mind, that you can oftentimes get a better discount, especially if you're buying multiple copies of something. Definitely go to some of those suppliers. So that's my stock tips. So the second thing about thinking like a bookseller, and really, really importantly, is customer service. So I was really fortunate growing up in America. I had some brilliant high school jobs, but one of them was working at a bank. And I got the best customer service training from working at that bank. And I've always appreciated that. And I really think that I've brought those skills with me as a librarian. And although I'm in a school and my customers are not paying customers, and they're students and staff, I always put customer service first. And I think it's really easy in a pressurized school environment to forget about that sometimes. but that front of house personality, the welcoming atmosphere, the making sure that everybody who walks through that door feels really important to you and that you're interested in them is so, so important. So building those relationships with students and staff, don't forget about the staff, is really, really important. And people will frequently say things like, oh, you're so busy, I don't want to bother you, or that sort of a thing. And I'm always willing to set down what I need to do to talk to that person who's come to me in person to talk to me about something, because inevitably there's a reason they have dropped what they were doing in order to come to me to talk about this, and it will lead on to something else. So that customer service side of things is really, really important. And I think the more I think about it, that's what I train my library helpers to be like. We have greeters on the door, and that in order to combine sort of behavior management with a really good library service, to me, it comes down to this customer service attitude. So I'm really fortunate. We have impeccable behavior in my school, but I make sure that comes into the library space as well. We're not seen as separate. We follow exactly the same rules and routines and things like that. And so what I would encourage is to help a lot of you who might be having behavior problems in your library, which I do talk to a lot of librarians who have these issues. Think about it as like that threshold between, the rest of the school or the corridor in your library, if you're lucky enough to have a threshold. I mean, some people are in like an open plan library, but think about what a teacher would do or how a teacher expects kids to come into their area. Really, really drill down into those routines and how you're welcoming people into your library and what the expectations are when they come in. Where do they put their bags and coats? These are little things that make a huge difference. So they know what to expect. They want predictability. You want them to behave a certain way. If you're really explicit about this and really train them on this, it becomes part of the routine of how you come into the library. And that creates a warm atmosphere. Everybody knows what to expect. There's no surprises. Everybody feels safe and everyone behaves. And I think that comes back to, for us with our library helpers, the first job that our library helpers learn is how to greet people at the door. And that helps with our behavior. So it's a customer service side of things. We're teaching them how to be friendly and greet people, but simply by having that person there to greet them at the door, we're welcoming them, we're being warm, but they know that they're being sort of watched, for lack of a better term. So any behavior problems, they know it's being looked at. It's not just being ignored. And occasionally, when I haven't got my library helpers here yet, and I'm here on my own, I will be at the door first. And if that means a little queue builds up at the desk for a bit, and then I will be there in a minute. So it's really thinking about your routines and threshold procedures and stuff, and just building that strong relationship. You want those repeat customers coming back time and time again. And then the other sort of side of that is building those relationships with staff. So getting to know the staff. I do introductions with the new skit trainees. So we have trainee teachers every year. And then with the new staff, we'll do an induction as well. And I try to get to know them, and I make sure that they know I'm here to help them. And I take that really seriously. The element of my title is being support staff. I take that very seriously, as I'm here to help the teachers deliver the best lessons, the best teaching that they can do. What can I do to help them? And if I approach it from that point of view, that really helps with my customer service and helps with the repeat customers. So if I can take one little idea and then branch out from it. So for example, geography, our geography department, they wanted to do some stuff with literacy, and they're a really, really lovely, very positive department. There are a lot of readers in their department. And they just said, well, we'd really like to do like a book of the term. I'm like, that's a great idea. I have books that I got from like the book trust, where I have like a set of 6 maybe of these books that some of them, aren't going out so often. So I'm like, how about I pick you a book of the term? You tell me when you want it. I'll choose the book. And then, I will send them like the cover image and the blurb and a little bit about the author, whatever. That's at the beginning. They just do that by themselves now. But at the beginning, it was like any little thing I could do to help them make this happen. And it's so simple. It's such a little idea, but they have now been doing it, I think, for 2 years. So it's just a book of the term. All of the geography department read the book. They just do one big display board in the corridor. They reward the kids for it, for reading those books. They have a chat about different books. So I get a lot of books out into the hands of students and staff that maybe were sitting on my shelf for a little bit. They get the lovely display and something, to put in their sort of development plans about how they're pushing reading for pleasure and literacy. And the students get reward points for further reading around the subject area. So it's a really, really simple, it's using resources that we already have. So it's not costing us anything additional. And they really enjoy doing it, and they come back. I know they enjoy doing it because they keep coming back asking for it. And that's that repeat customer. So when I have staff asking me for something, and then they keep coming back asking for the same thing, I know, okay, we've got it right. And it's always worth remembering that with the staff, because those early staff members now, or the classroom teaching staff who have special projects and things, those are the staff who go on to become SLT eventually. They're the ones who do get promotions. They become heads of pastoral teams and things like that. And they'll remember that you are a helpful person. They'll come back to you. And, it's always worth bearing in mind, they will eventually be the leaders. If you're not talking to the leaders already, those classroom teachers will become the leaders. They will become the ones who hold the purse strings. They might become your line manager. Things sometimes move fast in a school, and it's worth bearing that in mind with, this customer service element of it as well, is that, you are a big part, or part of a big team, and sometimes that moves quickly. And so it's really important that you find every single person interesting and important when they set foot in your library. And if you take that attitude, you can't really go very far wrong. And then that brings me to my third point about thinking like a bookseller, which is marketing and events. So, the stock and customer service are always going to be there behind the scenes. They're your scaffolding to build on. But the marketing and event side of it, you have got to tell people what you do. And that's really hard, I find, for a lot of library staff to do. You're super busy for a start. People don't fully understand what you do on a day-to-day basis. You don't quite know who your audience is. Who am I sharing this information with? So I found, Twitter/X really, really useful when I first started, because our SLT were on Twitter a lot. They were sharing things on Twitter. They were tagging me into things on Twitter, and I would tag them into things that I saw. And so I quickly realized, okay, this is a channel that my SLT are using, and I needed to go with that channel. So it's worth finding out, what channels does your SLT value in terms of your marketing and how you can share what you're doing. So are they valuing that like weekly school newsletter more than a social media post? Then you need to go down to the school newsletter point. Do you find that they really value like your staff bulletin? So we call it headlines, but every week a staff bulletin gets out. If that's where they find out what's happening in school, make sure that you're getting stuff in the staff bulletin. So find out the channel that your SLT are looking at, because they have so many things going on in school. There's so many things that they're looking at. If you don't put yourself on their radar, you won't be on their radar. Okay. And so in a really positive way, this is a way of pushing really lovely things that are happening in the library, or even a student who just does something that, tickles you, that you think, oh my gosh, look, we had one student who wrote, like a retelling of a Robin Stevens book, one of the Murder Most Unladylike books. He took like a tangent off of one of the stories and wrote about it. And so I put him up for a head teacher's award for that. And then, you know, she read it and stuff. And they love hearing stuff like that. Nothing is too small as well. Don't forget about that. Nothing is too small. So you get new books in the library, take some pictures of the new books, make sure they go into the newsletter, make sure they're going into the staff bulletin. We have plasma screens around the school that display things, and we just have to send a PowerPoint slide. Put them on the PowerPoint slide. If students are writing reviews, take pictures of the reviews. Have a student, you know, retype something so that you can put it on a PowerPoint and put it up on the plasma. All of those little things are marketing and raising the profile of your library. They're really quick. They're really easy to do. But you have to kind of pencil in time to do them as well. So there's usually sort of one day a week where I'm like, okay, I've got a little bit of space here. That will be my time to make sure that I do my newsletter article for the week. And, you know, what am I going to do this week? Well, we had, you know, something happening after school in the library, a club or something like that. Or if there is an author event, that's even better. You know, whatever events might be happening, definitely make sure that everybody knows about it. And that also you're celebrating those tiny little things. Like we started a silent library during lunch times. So Mondays and Thursdays at lunchtime, we do silent library. And it started a couple of years ago to help year 11 revision. Now it's expanded to all year groups. And it really, really works. But it was the first year we did it that way. It was the first year 7s were ever doing it. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. So as soon as they came in, and they were absolutely silent, you could hear a pin drop. They were amazing. Of course, I emailed the pastoral lead, the year 7 head, to say, your year 7s were amazing. So I also do that side of it. And that is kind of marketing, but also customer service together. I make sure that I am like the voice of positivity in the school. I know that a lot of teachers, and especially pastoral teams, really only get negative information. They're getting a lot of emails about things gone wrong or really horrible things. And if I can ping an email into their inbox and it's that one positive thing of, oh my gosh, your year group is amazing, this is what they did today. Or I had this student come up to me and she told me that, you know, the book I picked for her has started her reading this whole series and she hasn't read a book for the last year. If I can be that person who sends that really lovely email, you know, I want to be that person. Again, they're associating me with positivity. They're associating the library with positivity. They'll remember that. So when a student comes up to them struggling, they're like, oh, why don't we go see Mrs. Hamlet? Let's go to the library. Maybe we can get you a book. They know that I'm on their side and that I kind of understand what they're going through as well. So I think it's not just about tooting your own trumpet. It's not like an arrogance in any way. It's much more about showcasing the lovely things going on in your library, because there's always really lovely things going on in your library that we just take for granted. And that doesn't happen elsewhere in the school. So if people don't know about it, you've got to tell them about it and they want to hear it. And that's the other side of it too, is I think some, you know, when I meet library staff, sometimes they're like, well, it's not that big of a deal, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, maybe it isn't that big of a deal, but for somebody it might be. But also they may have had a really rotten day, and just having a lovely email from you about somebody in their tutor group, you know, being kind to another student, maybe helping them print something out because they're a new student, that might be the one really nice email they get that day. And if they've got it from you, that just raises the profile of the library again, and just kind of has that whole ethos of the library is such a lovely, lovely place in general to be in. And they want to come back. They want to be here. And so when I say like your library is like a bookshop, you've got to think of those really lovely, like magical bookshops and things like that. Yeah, it's about the books. Yeah, it might be about the person behind the counter. It might be about the fact that they do a really nice coffee. I don't know, you know, but it's more how you feel when you set foot in there, how that space or the people in there make you feel about yourself. And if you can do anything to be that force of good, be that person, really, because what have you got to lose? And I know it also makes you feel better. That's the other thing, because it's so easy to focus on the negative as well, because it doesn't always go to plan. But if you can try to focus on that, that's part of the marketing side of things too, is that you're always pushing positive things. And in terms of event planning, so I will always think about, the whole year in advance. And so what can I do to sort of explode a moment? So World Book Day, for example, is one that everybody hinges upon. I know there's lots of people who are already fully booked up. They've already got their author visitor. They've got, librarians coming in to talk about books and things like that. So World Book Day is something that I plan for. I've already done it. I've done my plan. But my plan for World Book Day is not about dressing up. It's not about getting it off the rent, sadly, because I'll do that at other times of the year. For me, World Book Day is getting books in the hands of my students, and we are in an area of deprivation. So one of the things that I've started doing a long time ago, which I continue to do and I tell everybody about, is the World Book Day, the £1 books, but I think a lot of people don't know that you can buy these packs. So there's packs of them. There's 50 for £5. And again, you get them through library suppliers. So I make sure that I purchase packs of those to give out to the students as a gift. So, I got permission from SLT to do this because I said, we're getting the £1 book tokens, but I'm seeing them in the bins. They're just getting recycled. Our students don't go to the shops. Their parents don't bring them to the shops. They just don't have the opportunity to go and actually use those tokens. So how can I just knock down that barrier? Well, I'll just give them the books and just take out the middleman, as it were. So they still get the voucher. So they can go get another book if they wanted, but they also get a free book. And then I upped the ante last year. I thought, why haven't I done this before? Buy an extra full set for the New Year Sixes. So this is the first year I had the wherewithal to remember to do that. So, getting enough books for all of Key Stage 3, but then also getting an extra set for next year's Year 7. So when they come to visit us in July as Year 6s, they are given a summer read, which is one of the £1 World Book Day books. And then we do a little activity packet with it. And then they bring that back in September. And then they get reward points immediately for doing that. So now in the autumn term, I'm already planning for transition next year. So that's the other side of thinking like a bookseller, is really project managing your library and thinking far in advance about some opportunities that if you take them now will set you in good stead for a year from now. And those types of things, that strategy thinking, that's what gets you noticed by SLT. And that's what gets you funding from SLT as well, because they see that not only do you have a vision, you have a plan of action and a strategy, and you know what it's going to cost, and you know the impact, and you're following through that whole thread of things. So that ends with the rewarding of the student when they come here in September as well. So don't forget to follow through with that side of things as well. The rewarding students for taking part in things is huge, and we have a great, robust reward system in our school. So we have a reading trophy that existed before I started here. So the house points go towards reading trophies. So that's just straight up book borrowing. But we do, where is it? We've got a passport for extracurricular activities. So on the passport, this is where I get points if they do the summer reading challenge with the city libraries. Anytime they do a book for further reading, anytime they do our book challenges. So we do book challenges through Creative Learning Services and Reading Rampage through the SDSA. So any of the books they read, they get passport points. So it's making a difference to themselves. That's in this column. My library helpers get passport points for making a difference to others. When they help out at open evenings, it's making a difference to our community. We have a community book trolley that goes out after school. That goes into the community column. So we really align with whole school reward systems as well. So I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just going with what already exists. So it's making sure that you do those sorts of things because the students really respond to that. So it is that strategy and follow through with everything is really integral to what I do in the library to hopefully make it perennially effective. And then in between all of that, you change it. So the reward system stays the same, but the books on the challenge change, and the students that might be targeting changes. So there's still changes within that, but the basic premise is there. So it's not like I'm starting a whole new idea every single year either. And that's what helps me to maintain my sanity and to get things done as well. So I think my time is up. So I'll stop there. There is going to be time for Q&A, but I'll send it back to Bev now, because then she'll ask Paul to talk. And then hopefully some of you will have some questions that I might be able to help with.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's all I can say. No, absolutely amazing stuff. Fab ideas. I love the whole focus that you were saying, on customer service, because basically that's what you need to do. We need to be giving a service. And also, I loved what you were saying, Bridget, about advocacy. We're all doing this fantastic stuff. Not everybody knows about it. So we do need to be shouting it from the rooftops when we are doing great stuff. As Bridget said, there will be time at the end for a Q&A, but I'd just like to invite our second speaker now. So, Paul, would you like to join me, please? And then I can push over the spotlight to you so that you can talk to us about Overdriv. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. And thanks for allowing me a few minutes at the end. I just wanted to congratulate Bridget, and I think I've seen some of the messages as well. That is an excellent example of school librarianship. All I wanted to add on was hopefully a service from Overdriv that in some ways can complement the sort of work that librarians and like Bridget do, and offer an additional string to the librarian's bow, which is Overdriv is a digital library company. One of the things that we provide for school libraries is two ready-made digital collections called Primary eBooks Now and Secondary eBooks Now. The purposes of bringing these in to your library service is to enable you to be able to offer a digital library of ebooks and audiobooks that your students can access anytime, evenings, weekends, and during holidays, and no matter what sort of situation that the student or the local area has, or wherever the school is situated, you can always guarantee that the student will have access to a premium library of books. So Primary eBooks Now and Secondary eBooks Now, the two collections that we offer, they are the largest of these sorts of collections. We have librarians that keep them both up to date. They are very straightforward. They are designed, they're as broad as possible, with 4,000 titles in each. They are designed to be the lending, digital lending library for the school. Students can borrow as many books as they want. There's no cap on that. And it includes over 1,000 class sets in the collection for the librarian to choose, or teachers to choose from. So a quick word about these collections. Primary eBooks Now is updated quarterly with new publishing that we get from the publishers. More than 200 titles get added each time, and that includes audiobooks, and that includes, importantly, which is always something that get asked for, it's UK narrated, it's British narrated audiobook publishing as well. The collection is not just a commercial one. Obviously, it includes as many award winners, award nominees, acclaimed titles as we can get. It also will include Primary eBooks Now will also include our package for the primary schools will also include, in the summer, we include the titles in the summer reading challenge as well. So if you have students who are taking part in this, whether or not they are public library members, but you want to be able to provide them with access to the books. You can do that through the primary eBooks Now collection. And we also support the Winter Mini Challenges as well during December, January. Primary eBooks Now also contains read-alongs. So you can actually, and teachers can also run these on screens in their classrooms, but also parents and students can actually borrow these as well. And there's a huge collection. There's really, really nice in there's a really, really nice collection from Bloomsbury of British read-along publishing. Secondary eBooks Now works the same way. Again, it's a huge collection of titles that students can access any time. So whether you've got students who will spend all day long on their phones and iPads, you can at least meet them halfway with secondary eBooks Now and get them to try ebooks and audiobooks as a way into reading. It's updated quarterly like primary eBooks Now with new titles. That includes the latest in audiobook publishing. That's available for digital library lending. It also has in there a comics collection, comics and graphic novel collection, which we keep up to date. Again, if you're looking at ways to get students reading who perhaps don't often read or don't often go near the library or drifted away from reading, then the comics collection is quite a good place to start. Equally, students can borrow, and there's a large collection of high-low content in secondary eBooks Now as well. Students who may feel self-conscious about borrowing high-low content might find that doing so through the digital environment is more comfortable for them. Anyway, there is an excellent collection of high-low content to tempt students, and obviously also, you know, the best ebook audiobook publishing that we can get is added to secondary eBooks Now quarterly. I did mention class sets. There are 1,000 titles that have unlimited multi-access capabilities in both collections. Secondary eBooks Now includes all the titles in 19th century novel and Shakespeare modules of English literature, GCSE for whichever exam board you're doing. But there are also contemporary titles as well. So if you have book groups that are looking for ideas or are meeting at weekends or want to run the book group with an audiobook, you can try that out with secondary eBooks Now or primary eBooks Now. One thing we added last year, and it seems to have been quite popular, we've added CPD stuff for teachers and all staff at the schools, and it seems to have caught on. So we've kept it. We've added titles. Obviously, all staff have access to this service as well, so they can borrow the CPD whenever they need. The app that students will use to access their secondary eBooks Now, primary eBooks Now collections is Sora. So Sora has been hugely well received as an e-reading app. It's available on all Apple and Android devices. Students and parents can download it as many times and install it as many times as they want on any and all devices that they have. And there is a browser version as well for desktop computers and laptops. It has a huge suite of tools that students can use. They can highlight passages, make notes in ebooks. They can then print those passages and highlights out. And it has the full suite of adjustable reading settings and audio settings as well, including special accessibility settings as well, high contrast setting, open dyslexic font, all sorts of things. Students can set the settings in their account to the way that they want, and then they will be automatically saved. And also, librarians and teachers too can access the reading data for students as well. So you can see how much is being read, what individual students are reading You can check on reading challenges that you might set at the school over the holiday, over the weekend, things like that. And you can actually see that those books have been borrowed in that way. And you can see students have been borrowing books and reading books. And you can also see how far through the books they are as well. So you get a good sense of the amount of reading that is going on using the service. Primary ebooks now, secondary ebooks now. Primary is £975, secondary is £1,250. SLA members get a 10% discount. Both services together is £1,650, and SLA members also get a 10% discount on that too. Anyone on this call right now who would like to try the service for free for yourself, other staff members, please email me below and we can set that up for you. You can download the app and we can give you access to primary ebooks now or secondary ebooks now, or both, for you to try using the Sora app. It's the best way for you to find out. Very intuitive, very easy app to use, and we'll hope we can set that up to you for run for a few weeks for you to enjoy. So email me if you are interested and would like to try the app or find out more. And just by way of demonstrating, secondary ebooks now is currently being enjoyed by hundreds and hundreds of schools across the country. So as I mentioned, anyone on this call who would like to have a go is free to email me. And with that, I shall pass you back to Bev.
Well, I just nearly forgot to come back in, Paul, because I was just so engrossed in what you were saying. You will be hearing from me, because I definitely want to have a dabble. I want to have a play. It's changed a lot since I last saw it. I loved the graphic novels and the staff library. That's absolutely a real boon, I know, because when I was a school librarian, yes, I did have a staff library. Was it well used by other members of staff? No, it wasn't particularly. But being able to let them read them on ebook, I think would have been a game changer for me. I think that's amazing. Absolutely wonderful. So we have already had a couple of questions come in for you, Bridget. First one from somebody well known to me, Cassie Kemp, who I've worked with before. Yeah, there you go. Cassie's asking, how do you go about making links with other staff in school who are perhaps reluctant to engage for whatever reason? Because as Cassie said, as librarians, we're not always the best at putting ourselves out there, whether we're new in role or indeed have been there for several years. And there are always some members of staff that it's going to be a bit like pulling teeth. So how do you get around that?
Well, I used to beat myself up about that. I was at a school in Coventry when I first started being a librarian. And I remember having a great conversation with my line manager about this precisely. I was so frustrated. And I was taking it so personally as well. And she said one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. She just said, Bridget, stop knocking on a locked door. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. She said, you need to find the open doors first. And then I had a really lovely, so I kind of took that and I thought, okay, that's interesting, but I'm not a quitter. What does that mean? And then we had a training session. It might have been through Coventry SLS. Graham Trier was there. He was doing a keynote speech, and he said something kind of similar of, whatever you do, you've got to be either saving a teacher time or money or work. It's whatever you're doing has to be like something that they want, basically. And that's kind of your way in. So I've kind of through the years kept those two pieces of advice in the back of my head. And for those reluctant ones, I seek out an opportunity to provide help for them. is how I would approach it. So, but I also question myself of like, well, is there a different person I should be talking to? Maybe that isn't the person who I need in the library for this reason. Maybe I need to go to somebody else in the department. Maybe that isn't the right person. It's also questioning that. But we have a really beneficial thing as well in our school, is that we have staff briefing in the library every Wednesday morning. So when I first started and was really trying to establish myself, as a professional librarian, I did make sure that, it was obviously friendly and welcoming, but I would theme, like maybe books I'd put on display at the table. So I might have a certain subject in mind, maybe that subject area that was reluctant to use the library. I might highlight quite a few bits and pieces that pertain to I know what the kids are talking about. If it's science and they're doing cells and electricity, I'll make sure that I have some of those books and magazines and things out on the tables. They just happen to be out there. So sometimes it's that softly approach. Sometimes it's finding the right person. Sometimes it's finding out something about them completely unrelated to school, books, or anything like that. And it's just having a chat. And so one of the aspects of being part of a really fantastic school and a lovely school and wanting to be here and loving my job is taking part in different staff events. When we have a quiz after school for just staff, I want to be there. When there's the social events and things like that, I try, if I can. Now that my kids are older, it's a little bit easier. I try to be at the social events so that I can get to know people on a different level. And social media. I have to say that's the other aspect of, having quite a large number of staff who are currently on Twitter. I don't know what's happening with that, but who are currently on Twitter. I find out different aspects about their lives, and they find out different aspects. So they find out, well, I'm not just about books and reading. I have children of my own. I'm into American flag football. I do badminton with Cassie, things like that. So then they might come to see me about different topics, and we build a rapport, and it might build from there. So, it's sometimes going in a different direction and making sure that if I keep knocking on that same locked door, I'm not going to get through. I need to find a different door.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And interesting what you say about having briefing in the library. I think that's excellent, absolutely excellent. Because the other thing I used to find myself, and I know lots of colleagues struggle with this, is that we often don't get to go to briefings or things because we've got the library open. Yeah?
That used to happen to me. I remember that was at a school in Coventry as well. And I do remember, my lovely business manager, she was very reluctant to let me go. And I said, well, I have this thing I need to announce at this briefing. And she said, I will come and I'll manage the library with the kids in there while you go to the briefing that one day. And she did. And I had an email almost immediately saying, you'll be allowed at briefing. We'll just close the library. So after that. So it was really interesting. It was like seeing is believing, because I think she thought that it wasn't a big deal, but she knew that she'd missed stuff at briefing that she needed to know. But also she knew that I couldn't just leave the library open. No. So that was really interesting as well. And I hadn't thought about that for years.
Yeah. I used to do a similar thing because I think all of us that have ever worked in a school library will have members of staff that we know we're never going to get across our doorsteps. It's just not going to happen. But I used to do it slightly differently to yourself. I didn't have briefing in the library, but I made sure that each term I did it myself. I didn't ask them to do it. I set one of each departmental meetings in the library.
Yeah, so I used to invite them in for that too. Yeah, back my other.
They were having. I'd speak to the head of department and say, "Oh well, I booked you in for your departmental meeting on such a date." Didn't say, "Would you like to come in?" Because that's not me. I've booked you in for that date, and they used to go, "Oh, okay," because then at least you've got them in your space and you've got more chance to talk to them. And of course, when they had their departmental meeting in the library, I provided tea and biscuits.
And biscuits.
Yeah, you know.
Always.
We've got to go with the biscuits, haven't we? You know, milk chocolate hobnobs win anyone over, let's face it.
It works. It
does.
works.
It does. A little question before I move on to the next question from our audience. A question for you, Paul. Because when I was looking, can you, when you've got Overdriv, can you set up like a display? So obviously we've got Halloween coming up. So can I set up a section of my ebooks that are Halloween based and promote them on the app?
So one of the things that will happen is that the app will start become very Halloweeny as we get close to Halloween. That's going to happen. You're going to see a few of those on there anyway. There is yes, you can set up your own curations on the homepage. And the way that happens is that you get when you get when you get an Overdriv service like secondary ebooks now or primary ebooks now, you'll get an Advantage account, and on there is where you will be able to both see the usage data, but then you will also be able to you can actually also you can supplement and buy your own individual books and things like that, and then with those you can also create a themed curation on the homepage on anything, on Halloween, on a particular author, on any kind of subject that you know that the library as a whole might be getting behind.
See, that's great, because obviously then, you know, I'm thinking ahead to doing stuff for like Empathy Day and things like that, and having those collections on show would be, and of course BookTok. Oh, I spend far too much time on TikTok, Paul, believe me, far too much time on TikTok. So yeah, a BookTok one I should think would be very popular.
Yeah, well, we have librarians and stuff who think of these as well, but I mean, obviously your service, you've got you know, your own curation ideas as well. You know, by all means.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be in touch, Paul, because I need a play. I do love a play with a bit of new tech, as most people know already. Thanks very much, Paul. Okay, Bridget, we have got another question for you from Fiona. Fiona, who has already said that it was so inspirational, and thank you very much. She's a new school librarian, and everything that you said actually chimes with what she wants to achieve. So you're in good hands here, definitely, Fiona. But what she's asking is, have you got any particular tips for running student book clubs? Because she's very keen to make them as fun and interactive as possible.
Right. Well, it's really interesting. I just before this meeting, I was meeting with a new skit trainee teacher who wants to start up a Enemies to Lovers older reader book club with me this year. And I was saying to her, I have started so many different book clubs, and I never, ever feel like I get it right, ever. So firstly, you know, it's okay to get it wrong for years and years and years. It's absolutely fine. They still come and see me. They still get books. But I have tried so many different types of clubs. And what seems to be what always happens, no matter how I set it up, whether it's like, let's all read one book and then meet and talk about one book, or we're going to do like the Reading Rampage book challenge. So there's like 10 different titles. We've got lots of time, and we might focus on one title that week and do like a word search with that. Or we might do design your own bookmarks or something like that related to that book. So we try to do those things, and that's fine. And it works great. And they love coming, but they would come anyway. And what I found is, if you find the right group of kids, they just want to be with you in the library. And I think ultimately that's where you need to kind of put the focus is who do I want to invite? Do I want this to be just you sign up, you know, you find me, and then we'll kind of band together and become our book club? Or have you got other ideas in mind? Like, have you got, maybe you've got appraisal targets or PDR targets where you're supposed to be trying to appeal to certain targeted groups of students, to certain cohorts that have a dip. So like, I know, for example, one of the things that's in the back of my head this year that I haven't quite worked out how I'm going to do it yet. At one point in time, I had the wherewithal to figure out through my data at the end of last year, my boys who are going to be in year 8 this year, so they are in year 8 now, who were reluctant but higher ability. So they don't like reading, but they're really, really clever. They're chatty. They're in the library anyway, but they're still not taking out books. So I've kind of found 10 of them. I've already said to English, these are the 10 boys. I can't remember why I made this list, but I want to do something that's going to target them this year. And I think it's going to be manga. I'm not quite sure. So even now, it's just like, I let it ruminate. I let it think a little bit. It's okay to think about things. I would rather get it right the first time. There's like manufacturing being, get it right the first time. Think about it, put a plan in place, get the right people in place. I might not be the right person for that club. That's the other thing to think about. When I was working at really part-time at one of my other schools, I had to set up the library, but I was only there 8 hours a week, 2 afternoons. I had to learn to delegate a lot of stuff. And I learned a lot from that. Is like, you know what? And a lot, it's taking down your ego a little bit too. Like, just because I'm the librarian doesn't mean I'm the only one who can run a book club. Yeah. There are plenty of other readers out there, plenty of other teachers who want to do stuff. And I might not be the person to get those year 8 boys reading. Let's face it. There might be a better member of staff able to do that. And so it's kind of thinking about that. But I would say figure out who, keep the group relatively small. So my best book clubs, my loyal book clubbers who keep coming back to see me, who become my library helpers, who just love being in the library. And in year 11, they're the ones who seek me out with the results. They started at a book club in year 7 or 8. And it's because there was like maybe 12 of us maximum, something like that. So keep it small. Keep it sort of, they have a bit of a freedom of choice. They love anything to do with crafting and coloring and like origami. So little things that you can do whilst chatting. They love having a chat. And for them, it's building confidence through being with a like-minded group of people. And so it's kind of not about the book. It's about the people in your book club. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's about finding your tribe, isn't it? It is.
Yeah, there you go. That's a really short way of putting my really long explanation.
No, but it is. It is. It's the same. I mean, when you think about it, well, I mean, I'm a lot older than both of you on the screen. You're both making me feel ancient. But when I was at school, we did not have the same chances that kids have nowadays to find your tribe, because there was no internet, there was no online. If you were a very geeky heavy rock fan like I was, you were pretty much on your own, I've got to say, because you didn't really find like-minded people so much. But the library was somewhere where I knew I could go because I was also a prolific reader and I could find other readers, so I knew I could find other people that read there. And I think it is about that sense of community. I couldn't agree more. If I can just put in my own 2 penneth, because some things you were saying I agreed with totally, with the the classic book club thing is you all read the same book. That has never worked for me.
They never read it.
Ever worked for me. And when I've tried to set up clubs in schools doing it that way, just hasn't worked. Because we've all got different tastes, we've all got different ideas of what we enjoy reading. So how I used to do my book clubs in my last school was, it was never we all read the same book. We all read a selection of books. I used to have a selection of books on the table, and I say, go on, you choose which one you want to read. And then when they'd finished it, I asked them to do a 5-minute book talk on it for the other kids. Yeah. And the other one that I found that was really successful for those type, exactly the sort of kids you're talking about, Bridget, the ones that can read but won't read. Yeah. I was lucky enough, because I'd been in the job quite a while, I had quite a few publishers that were sending me proofs Of course, if you're getting sent proofs, you cannot put them on your shelves. That's not the thing you should do. So I had a read it before it's out book club. So they got to read the proof books before they were actually published. And it made it a bit special because it was like, well, none of the other kids in school are allowed to read these. They're not even out yet. So you can't talk to anyone about it because they're not out yet. But you're the only ones that are allowed to read it. And that worked really well with my confident readers because it was a bit like, you know, you're special. And
that's a little thing that I think people underestimate as well, is the making it special. How you deliver it is important. So we've all seen, well, we've all done it where we've sent notices to tutors, for example. And if you witness how a tutor might tell them that your certain club is going on, you're like, oh, well, I could have done that in an email. You know, sort of thing. They're like, okay, so how something's delivered. So making it really special. It's that I've got these books. I was at a conference. They let me take extras just for you because I told them how special you guys are. Even if that wasn't the case, there's a huge table. They're like, just take as many as you want. They don't know that. So actually being able to like say to the students that they're special and you've got these just for them. Because you just remind me, I did that with the Kieran Millwood Hargrave, the Shadow of the Wolf one that just came out, you know, from the FCGB conference that we were at like in the spring. I did that and they loved it, which they should. It's Kieran Millwood Hargrave.
Well, it is a brilliant book. I've read that one. So, it is brilliant. I think the other thing, something else that's just crossed my mind, I can't even remember what it was now. See, look, I've lost my train of thought because you've got me thinking about Kieran Millwood. Yeah. Oh no, that was it. This was something not that I did, but that I'd heard somebody else done many years ago. They had it was a focus on not so much the reading, but more the writing, but it would work in the same way. And they had a group of very reluctant readers and writers, boys, in a year 9. I mean, come on, the year 9 reluctant readers is enough to strike fear into the heart of anyone, isn't it? Come on.
Yeah.
But they decided, they set up this lads and dads thing after school. And they used to they said it was dads, but it could be any male relative. And they came into the library and they sat down and they read. They were reading a book together, but they chose something like Barrington Stoke. So, you know, they were reading a couple of chapters each week. But then they were watching clips of football matches and getting them to write a match report. And then they bought in, the snacks they bought in were Yorkie bars because they're not for girls. Yeah. So they went for Yorkie bars.
When was this?
Yeah. And then they had chips delivered. And the funniest thing was, it was the most successful thing they'd ever done. But the librarian who'd arranged it all wasn't allowed to attend because she was a woman.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So, again, as you say, it was one of the male teachers that ran it. Because it was very much, no, we're having no females in here. We're just having the boys. So it's that, as you say, it's that making it special, isn't it? You know, and I love that idea. Although I'd have had to disguise myself and crept in as a bloke. But there you go. She obviously didn't. There you go. Yeah. Okay, so Cassie's saying, yes, I agree, Cassie. Cassie's saying genre-based book clubs, she's seen work very well. So, you know, for example, you say like this month we'll do murder mystery or, you know, whatever you want to do. And I think that's a great idea as well.
I think making it also where, especially with older students, if they don't have to commit like to a weekly club or something like that, where it can be more drop-in, they might be more likely to do that just because they almost fear the commitment. And it's the sort of, well, what if I can't attend one week? I don't want to let you down. So it's kind of making it a little bit drop-in-y. You'll always have your regulars, but making it okay for a new person to drop in and for somebody else to stop coming. And that's all right. And I mean, just never underestimate the power of a bookmark and like making bookmarks, giving free bookmark. It's the weirdest thing to me, but they're obsessed. just can't, I cannot explain the power of designing a bookmark or just giving away a piece of paper that you can use as a bookmark or fold into a bookmark. Honestly, it just beggars belief, but yeah, they love it. At least in my school. Maybe that's just my school. I don't know.
Well, I'd probably say you are slightly unusual in that, because if I'd given one of my lads a bookmark, they'd have probably chucked it back at me. But there you are. You've just got to know your kids, haven't you? That's the thing.
That's it.
Got to know your kids. Well, we have actually gone over, which I'm sure Helen would have expected when she asked me to present, because it always does. Thank you so much, both of you. Both really interesting talks, got loads out of them. Thank you, everybody that's come along. If you do have any other questions that you didn't have a chance to put into the chat, do send them over to us at the SLA. I'm sure we can pass them on for you. But have a good evening, everyone, and take care.
Thanks, Bev. Bye.